Welcome back to MaxsGarajMahal. In this episode, I got quite a few private messages to ask me about covering some more of these diagnostic tools that I've used to track down the wiring problems with the mower. And you saw this Syntec cable tracker, and I will pick it up and show it to you here in just a second. You get it over here, and that's an item number 94181. Now this is the older version. I've had this for 15-20 years, and they've upgraded that to a more expensive one since the Harbor Freight lad has inherited it from his father. He's really trying to take this into the, I don't know, 21st century's expensive line products, which is, you know, it's sort of like, you always should dance with the old girl what you brung, but you know how that goes. Okay, so the way this works, they both have 9-volt batteries in them. You just pull the screw out, put the battery in, put the screw back in, clip this back on, put the screw in, and it can do two things. It can either do continuity or it can do tone, and tone for me most of the time is much the better process. And you just clip the hot wire side to this, we'll use this fuse right here system. Another thing I want to tell you about too that you might want to try some point in time is you can take one of these fuses right here, take one of these fuses. What I do is I cut the top off, cut it in half, cut the top off. Now I usually take a blown fuse. As you can see, this one is blown. You get the monitor over and see if you can see that. Yeah, I think you can see that fuse is blown. Okay, so take the blown fuse, then I cut it apart like this. Now let's see, like this, and then I just cut the top off of it, exposing just the very tops of the tabs so that I can then attach, come over here, booger, then I can attach the lead to them like this right here. So what we can do then, after we've taken the fuse, cut it apart, then we drop part of it down in there and we'll never see again. Okay, so you don't do that. That's a bad thing to do. And you can take that fuse out over here. And that was one of the circuits that really had several shorts in it. And we're going to go to the fused side, this side over here, and you can't see that, so let me point the camera down here. And the way I've got the monitor set up, forgive me, I can't really see what you guys are seeing, so I apologize. We'll do the best we can to get you some sort of photos here that you can see. Let me see what you're seeing here. Okay, and let me try to zero you in there a little bit better. Okay, now I realize I'm in my own way, in your way, trying to do this, but here we go. So now we're going to take the positive side here. We're going to hook to the fused side of the circuit. I'm going to go down here, and since the battery is right here handy, we're just going to hook up to the battery. We're going to flip this on tone, as you can see there. Okay, I'm going to get this over here out of the way, because the closer that wire is right here, the I don't know if you can see that or not, the closer the toner is to the circuit, then we don't want to pick up. Now I'll show you. Now you're going to turn on, you're going to turn this counterclockwise, and I'm going to take it to about halfway. Then there's a button right here. We'll push this down. And as you can see, the closer you are to that circuit, and the further away you go, that tells you that when you get to where this toner or this scanner is no longer making the beep, then you've gone past the break in the wire. Okay, so that's very, very helpful, and hopefully this little tip right here will help you so that you don't accidentally spread these out where a fuse won't make good connection, because if it doesn't make good connection, you'll also think you have a problem, because then there's not real good continuity of your testers and of your batteries and your fuses and all that stuff. So you want to make sure you don't spread those connectors out. All right, let me get this one out of the way. Now, another thing you can do here, and I'm trying to make these videos where anybody's little shop, you don't have to have a great big huge shop in order to have all these tools. These are inexpensive tools. This again is another Harbor Freight tool. It's a Syntec 67724, and I've had this also for quite a long time. And what it does, now I've already put the battery in this one also, so we don't have to take the time to do that. The battery goes right here. It's real simple. You just pull this screw out. It's like, don't lose that little screw. Put a little battery that comes with it in here. Put that back together. What you're going to do is you're going to take this, plug it into your fuse circuit, take the fuse you took out, put it in here. This will do a couple of things. This is going to tell you how much amperage that circuit draws. Also, it will help you test that circuit by up to 10 seconds. You just push this little button right here, and it'll put a load on that circuit. And let's just do it real quick. And let me see if you can see it over here real quickly. We'll use it on, all right, this is the oil cooler fan circuit right there. All right, now also you're hearing the fuel pump. Let's take the fuel pump out of the equation right now also. All right, let me get to where you can see here. And my camera operator, which is me, not a very good camera operator, but we've known that for how many years now? Quite a few. So we're going to put it into, let's say, well, first let's take the fuse we took out, which is this. And it calls for a 20 amp fuse in that circuit. So we're going to use the fuse that came out of it. Watch me blow it now. And we're going to put this sucker in here. We'll put the fuse down. That way if it flashes, you might be able to see it. And as you can see, the circuit's good. Now what we also want to know, if you can see that, is how much is that pulling? That's pulling 3.3 amps, if you can see that. Tell you what, hang on a second. I've never taken this little wire holder off. I'll do that real quickly so I can get this closer to the camera. Key is on. All right, this circuit tester's off. And there you go, she's pulling at this time 3.1 amps. Probably as everything gets hotter, and it'll probably pull more amperage. But that calls for a 20 amp fuse, and it has still got the factory fuse in it, believe it or not. And I'll show that to you here in just a second, as soon as I can get this out. Okay. Now let me get over here and see if you can see this. May have too much light on it, I'm not really sure. Well, I can't see what y'all are seeing, so let me get a little closer. 20 amp fuse, and this is the original fuse for this old motor. Okay, I'm going to leave that out so you don't have to listen to that fan. Then I'm going to take, this is a 15 amp for the fuel pump. And let's see if I can get you some sort of focus there. 15 amp for the fuel pump, and you'll be able to hear the key is still on. There you go, and you can hear the pump kick in. So now we're going to take that fuse, put it in the tester, And by the way, this has a 10-second load limit on this. All right, 0.3 of an amp. 0.4 of an amp. 0.4 of an amp. So the little fuel pump doesn't put a lot of load on your test or on this fuse. And it does call for a 15 amp fuse. I checked it out in the manual again this morning before I started this nonsense. I'll say one thing, these things ain't going to fall out either. So when we left this yesterday, we were having to work the system with we weren't getting any power down to the solenoid, and we were having to use this remote starter button right here. Alright, so let's test. I'm going to show you a way to test, and all this is we're using here, this is another instrument for diagnoses, and what we're doing here is we're connecting, I don't know if you can see it here, no, well, okay, I'm pointing to the battery, and we got one connector hooked to the positive terminal. I'll just show you that real quickly. Which is right down here. That's this connector right here, and that's connected to the positive terminal. Okay, and then the other end is connected to the ignition switch terminal on the solenoid. So when you have that set up, you can hear that it's trying to start the engine. Now, what we want to do is we want to test that with, we want to test if we're getting power down there. And let's say that you're in your shop alone, you don't have an assistant, which, so, what makes you like the Garage Mahal? Max doesn't have an assistant out here, so let's do this. Let's be both the assistant, let's be the submarine, and let's be the driver. So and as everyone knows in the world, there are two kinds of jobs. You have the above job and the below job. So right now I'm going to do the above job, which is turn the ignition switch to the start position. And if we have power down there to that, then what we're doing is when I push this button, we're making continuity between the starter solenoid and through this light to the ground, so that we're making continuity, so that in this switch has power, and it's going to light this light. So let's do that real quickly, and I want to push the button with one hand. I'm going to turn the ignition with the other, which you should be able to see me rock my hand here. Can you hear the switch? Now, pushing the button, and we still have no fire or the light would come on. Now let's test the light, make sure the light is working. Okay, so we know there's continuity through the switch, or through the test light. I'll go back here, we'll test that. We know that this is working because I just hit it before we started with the button. So we know we have continuity through the remote starter button. So we're going to continue to do some diagnosis here, and we will come back shortly. But those are the tools that I'm utilizing, is this little fuse circuit tester I'm using, which is the 30 amp automotive fuse circuit tester from Harbor Freight, model number 67724. They do not give me a penny for this. We're using an old fuse that we cut apart to make the tabs, so we could contact the tabs without causing any problems with the circuit and spreading the connectors apart for the future. You don't want to do that. We're using this cable tracker right here, which is again Syntec from Harbor Freight 94181. We're using an old, I use this extended lead light tester here, which I blew the bulb, and it's not too long ago, so I went and got some number 94 bulbs, just replaced the bulb, and I had to put a bolt in there to extend it, but that was just to give it more pressure on the spring. You don't really have to do that. I just want to make sure you always have good contacts. So I use a stainless bolt in there for the future that it's not ever going to rust. So we're going to kill it right here and come back when we get some more done. So hopefully this has been helpful up to this point in time, and if so, then maybe you want to see where we go in the next part of this video. So hang loose. And of course, as usual, I forgot one of the testers I'm using. So let me show that to you real quickly. These are getting sort of hard to come by anymore. It is an intermittent short indicator and short circuit finder. And this little sucker works. It's really, really old school. Catalog number is 25300. It's from S&G Tool I Corporation. And they're really hard to come by anymore. They're not cheap. This is probably the most expensive tool I've got out here right now in this arsenal of test equipment. And basically all this is just an old school voltage tester. And they've refaced this thing. It doesn't even have your amperage. It's just an amperage tester. Usually these things go anywhere from 15 to 30, 45 to 60, even some of them 90 and 120. This one was probably originally a 30 amp, and it's been refaced to have nothing other than, it says on it, if you can't read that, let's see if I can get it where you can read it. Tell you what, let's do here. Let's turn this camera light off for a second, or see if we can lower it enough where you can see it. Does that make it better? All right, I'll hold it there for a few seconds. Maybe you'll be able to read that. Yeah, let's see. Now, let's see if you can read that. And I'll read it to you. It says, needle will oscillate rapidly when held over shorted wire. Area of short is located when needle stops. So in other words, and by the way too, this thing is going to point to the direction of the short. And I don't really think I have any shorts left to show you. So this is really not going to be a real good indication of how this one works for you, but let's go back here to this fuse, which we know was where the major short lay, and let's take the 20 amp. This is supposed to have a 25 amp fuse. I don't have any at the time, so I've got a 20 in there just for testing purposes. By the way, one other thing I used for testing was a brand new relay, and I think it's over there. This is the XL relay right here, and I'll show you real quickly. I marked the numbers on it. This is number 86, number 30, as you can see on here, 87, 85, and there's 87A in the center here. All right, so I used a 4-pole right here to do the testing, because I just want to know if my circuit was completing, and all I needed was 4 tabs to complete the circuit. So that's another test tool, was utilizing a new relay. This one tested good, but I've had them test good and they absolutely would trip at too low of amperage draw. And so real quickly, we're going to hook this little puppy up right here. And it's a fairly simple deal. All this has in it is it has a circuit breaker in it. So what I would do, if I hadn't lost that stinking part of that fuse, is I would hook this up here, and then I'd hook the other side up over to this side, like that. Lay this down somewhere where it won't pull the wires off. Then you're going to take your circuit, and see there's no big draw on that thing now from and it's not making it growl. And this thing, when there's a short, this thing will growl and that circuit breaker kick out and in, and it will just sound terrible. This needle, if you're going down the wire this way and the short is this way, this needle will be going this way, like this. Hey, let's say this finger's the wire and it's got a short over here, then that needle will lay over this direction and be doing this. And as you go down that wire, when it gets to the point where it's no longer at the break, it's going past the break in the wire, it'll stop dead still just like that. So that gives you an overview of how that works. And I've got one other thing I've got to do before we come back, and I'm going to button up one more wire that I've already got solved, and we'll be back shortly to show you that. Okay, here we are. We're just about to finish this little video up, and it was about more than anything else, I guess, diagnostics and showing you how to use the diagnostic tools. And I didn't mention the digital ohm meter, digital voltmeter, whatever you want to call it. This is a little cheap Harbor Freight as well, a little Syntec digital multimeter. I've got 2 or 3 really expensive ones in there. I've broken the leads off this several times. As a matter of fact, I've got one that's about to break here now, as you can see probably. Just the wire's holding it, the strain relief is gone. So I'll probably solder or put some hot glue on that to get it going. But all right, now I had to remove, just a moment ago, the starter motor wouldn't engage, so I had to remove this. This is an on-color, this particular one, and this motor has been retired, they say. It's a Kohler EFI 28 horsepower CV745. Should start out with Kohler CV745. Anyway, this is a metal guard over the engine, and Kohler really has a problem with this on pretty much all their engines that I've ever had. Starter, when the engine stops at a certain place, there you go, so it's turning over now. But it wouldn't turn over a while ago, it was locked up basically. So I removed that cover and I took the top of the flywheel and turned the engine to get it past off the compression so that the starter would engage, and you just heard it spin over, so it took a little bit. So the starter could also be a little bit weak, but here we go. Cross your fingers, guys, see if it'll start. Okay, we got fuel pump, we got oil cooler fan running. Okay, we may have just experienced what the original owner, or not the original owner, but the young gentleman that donated the machine to us for the Hustler Super Z World Land Speed Record attempt, and it just shut off. So we're going to find out now if it wants to re-engage. Aha! More diagnostics coming. So we're going to go ahead and end this video here, and we'll get it back in the shop. We'll start doing some more diagnostic runs on it and try to figure out why it lost. I think probably part of it could be that we don't know where at this time. We're going to have to start back tracing the wiring harness to figure out where the exhaust gas sensor connects to the ECU. And at this point in time, we do not know. We're going to have to get the ECU down and exposed where we can get to it, and then we'll start doing some work on it right there and see what we can figure out. And without the exhaust gas sensor connected, it's always going to stay in an open loop, which means it's like on a carbureted engine, it's going to be extremely rich. And extremely rich means it's trying to give it more gas to air fuel ratio in order to get the temperature up in the engine so that it'll go ahead and run. And when it gets to 600 and something degrees inside the exhaust, then the exhaust sensor then puts voltage back to the electronic control unit or module, and it tells it that it has now engine temperature has come up to a certain temperature, so therefore you can cut back on the fuel ratio. So the air fuel ratio is quite a bit broader than it will be in open loop, so it goes into closed loop. So that's what we're looking for, and it doesn't seem to be coming all the way up to I noticed in the Kohler University that it says these motors runs like 3,800 and something RPM, and I don't believe this one's quite running that. I have to put a tack on here shortly and find out. But once I remove the tack from the old Hustler World Land Speed Record Holder Hustler Raptor SD, we will borrow the tack and put it on this one after we get it where it fires and runs. We'll find out what the RPM is on it. So we appreciate you guys watching the video. Hopefully the explanation on the demonstration on some of the diagnostic tools help you. You don't need them all, although on this particular unit I probably used every one of them, more than several times actually. So again, we hope you got something out of this. Please share your videos with others, get more people in here. I need more subscribers. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit that little notification bell down there so you get notified the next videos coming out. And please share by all means. So we thank you for coming by Max's Garage Mahal. And as we always say here at Max's Garage Mahal, y'all come back, see us now, you hear?